Coming up in today's newscast, Argentina officially cancels its friendly soccer match in Israel. A passionate man gives the Knesset a cannabis trial by fire, and prepare yourself for the sweetest Guinness World Record of all time. Argentina's national soccer club has just canceled its friendly match with Israel this weekend, buckling under what appears to be intense international pressure, as well as security concerns. That means superstar Lionel Messi won't be coming to Israel after all, and apparently not even Prime Minister Netanyahu himself could salvage the game. Argentina's national team was originally set to play this friendly warm-up match against Israel's team in Haifa, before heading out to compete in the 2018 World Cup. But it wasn't until the Israeli government moved the match to Jerusalem that the situation became somewhat messy. Palestinians immediately accused Israeli leaders of politicizing the game by moving it to Jerusalem and announced that they'd burn Messi jerseys if the game went ahead. On top of this, it soon emerged that Culture and Sports Minister Miri Regev made a cash deal with the government to fund the move to Jerusalem in exchange for photo ops with Messi on the field. This is in addition to allegations that Regev's ministry actually only put up 10,000 game tickets for sale to the public out of 30,000, the rest being reserved for various government entities, NGOs, and corporate sponsors. For Palestinians, this cancellation is a massive win, perhaps one of the biggest wins for BDS supporters. But Palestinian leaders say they had no problem with the game when it was scheduled in Haifa, where Israeli and Arab soccer fans routinely gather. Despite this, Messi and his family do say they received death threats against playing the game at all. But at the end of the day, Israelis are mostly devastated to see the match fall apart. Prime Minister Netanyahu called Argentina's president to try and intercede, but President Macri told him that the ball was no longer on his side of the field. Here now with more on the cancellation of the Argentina-Israel friendly is journalist at the sports channel Sport 5, Gil Barak, partner at Rimon Cohen & Company PR, Benny Cohen, and ILTV correspondents Joy Gavijon and Nori Lizaraga. Thank you all very much for coming in. But my first question, I'll start over here on this side. You know, what do you think the actual root cause of the cancellation was? We'll start with you.
You know what? Let me lower the flames a little bit. I think that the whole thing got out of proportion. You know, people are noticing what's happening in the northern border of Israel. The tension. It's not the most peaceful time to visit Israel if you're not familiar with the climate. And they decided a week before the biggest event of their career, of their nation, because the expectations are so high from the Argentinian national team, not to show up. That's the big story. I think it's somewhat understandable.
So you don't think, maybe it was, the death threats or anything else that had anything to do with it?
Nobody pays attention to the facts. It's always like that. They don't pay attention to the facts. I mean, those who hate Miri Regev, well, why did she have to put it in Jerusalem? In Haifa was okay. Of course not. The BDS and the Palestinians didn't want this to happen because they understood this is a big win for Israel. So everybody pinches the right facts that he would like to pinch and then focuses on that. Basically, I believe that if you have one artist, it's about him or her. If you have a group of players and the families are threatened, it's quite understandable that they don't want to come. Yes, it is a win for the Palestinians. It doesn't really matter whether we thought we'd go to Jerusalem or not. But one thing I would like to point here. This is good that has happened because we are looking forward to the Eurovision contest within a year. And then the same question will be there. So let us learn what we can learn from this event in order to make right that we'll have the Eurovision contest next year.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the Eurovision contest and kind of, how do you think this might, affect that in the future?
Well, I think whenever these kind of things happen, it sets, let's say, a tendency for the next year because this was a huge international event. It was, people were excited about it, and now that it's been canceled, and they brought terror and fear to something like sports, to something to a cultural exchange, because it wasn't even a competition. It was about a friendly match. How can you then you're gonna have next year Eurovision with all these different countries coming to Israel?
It's also supposed to be friendly.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like but at the end of the day, it's a competition that legitimizes the state of Israel also. Right. So it's nice to have it here.
I think the problem is that, what BDS did right now, what they achieved, what they claim they achieved, is something that encourages them to do it again, to try to do it again. So why wouldn't we expect this to happen for Eurovision then? And why couldn't the Israeli government find a way to avoid this beforehand? So, as he said, I think this is a way to learn from.
Why to avoid? I mean, why should we back ourselves in a situation that somebody doesn't like it? The BDS can be encouraged by what has happened, but anyhow, they want us out of this building in the sea. So, I'm not sure that the right way is always to say, okay, let's play it safe. Let's not bring the Eurovision or whatever.
But I believe that you actually did touch upon something which a lot of people are arguing, that the event was politicized beyond what it should have been here in Israel, either by Israeli leaders or by Palestinian ones. So the moving to Jerusalem, it could be construed as a political move, couldn't it?
I disagree. I think a huge sporting event had happened here, 3 weeks ago, the Giro d'Italia. It was here, started at Jerusalem.
Well, there were allegations of that being politicized as well, with the flyers being recalled. And
yet again, it was still conducted flawlessly. No security measures. Security did their job accordingly. Everything went smooth and nice. And again, I'm taking you back to the beginning of the conversation. It's this week, these last 2 weeks, that are a bit warm in terms of political tension. That's the main reason for the Argentinian national team not to show up here. The rest is,
I do think that the moving the game to Jerusalem had a say on that, because we reported before, the BDS movement that started this campaign to not to ask Argentinian team not to come here, long before, right when the game was announced. Right. So in the beginning, they said we're coming. They said, doesn't matter, we're gonna go. They weren't even afraid of the threats because they got threats before this.
Right.
So the fact of moving the fact of moving the game right after the embassy move, I think it is a political statement in a way.
The timing of that political statement, I think that was the main issue, because if you look back into the BDS thing, it's always around for every artist that wants to come here to play. They always encourage people not to come here because of this. Right. And I think in this case, I think it was a wrong move. I will call it like that, because it's it was adding fuel to the fire of this last couple of weeks.
So coming off of that, I'd like to go back to you, Benny. Just threatening players to get them to do what you want. Is this like a proof of concept after this? Are we going to see a lot more of that in events that Israel is involved in, or in general?
Yes, of course. It has happened. It will happen. Everything is politicized. Nothing is pure. Nothing is really art or game of soccer or game of everything is politicized. We have to understand that. And not only in Israel. I mean, people don't go to the United States because of Trump or because they like Trump, or Putin or because they like Putin, whatever. The whole thing is always politicized, and of course, each one of the parties would like to advance more. So if threatening will help, okay, let's start more threatening. But will the threatening really influence those who would like to come? I'm not sure.
Political parties will jump on the bandwagon of each and every case, but the fact is that some let's say music artists decided to show up and perform in Israel, and some didn't. Sure. So it has been like this, and will continue. This specific event of not having the game of Argentinian national team in Israel is one of the events. It doesn't say anything, in my opinion, about the next one.
All right, and on that note, we will have to end it and move on to our next topic. So Prime Minister Netanyahu continues his European tour today after meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris. Netanyahu is on a mission to rally European leaders to follow President Trump's example and drop the JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran. But European leaders have reaffirmed that they are committed to staying in the deal. At best, it sounds like Netanyahu may hope only to sway Europe on certain deal points, such as stipulations on ballistic missiles. There may be no bigger public proponent of the deal right now than President Macron. Netanyahu arrived in Paris yesterday for his meeting, flanked by protesters on the Champs-Élysées. Though Macron concedes that Iran's nuclear program is a clear and volatile threat, he argues that the current deal, while not perfect, is the only thing working to delay Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Donc le JCPOA n'est pas suffisant, je suis tout à fait d'accord. Mais il est mieux que ce qu'on avait avant. Et d'ailleurs, les services israéliens l'ont bien montré. Donc pour ma part, je considère que ça veut dire qu'il y a une montée de la tension réciproque. Et moi j'invite tout le monde à stabiliser la situation et à ne pas céder à cette escalade, parce qu'elle ne mènerait qu'à une chose, le conflit.
But for Prime Minister Netanyahu, Macron's position may be moot. Netanyahu argues that the new path of economic sanctions taken by the Trump administration will cause a financial meltdown for the regime and ultimately topple Iranian leadership. Many believe this is the true endgame Israel is seeking and why Israel has lobbied against the deal from the beginning.
I didn't ask France to withdraw from the JCPOA because I think the JCPOA is basically going to be dissolved by the weight of economic forces. But I think that there are two possibilities. Either Iran dismantles its nuclear activities unilaterally under this pressure, or there may be in the future negotiations for a better deal. Either one would be good if the result is that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. My interest is not this or that agreement. My interest is to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons.
Other analysts predict that Israel may hope the deal collapses, forcing Iran to continue its nuclear program and giving Israel the go-ahead to launch a preemptive war. In an increasingly popular and effective trend, Palestinians from Gaza are regularly flying homemade kites over the border and dropping firebombs on Israeli soil. Combined with the summer heat, these incendiary kite attacks have erupted into massive fires that have engulfed over 2,000 acres of Israeli fields and tens of thousands of acres of nature reserves. The government estimates that some $2.5 million worth of agriculture alone has been burnt to ash. Firefighters near the Gaza border have been working overtime lately to calm the deadly flames. And though the fires have not claimed any casualties so far, this is clearly no laughing matter. This problem now stands as one of the biggest on-the-ground threats to Israel's national security. For Palestinians, this homemade workaround is a clever alternative to Israel's use of deadly force against rioters on the Gaza border. A homemade terror attack of sorts that only costs a few dollars and cents.
يطلقون صافرات الانذار يطلقون قبة حديدية لرصد أو لاعتراض الصواريخ لكن بفضل الله عز وجل هذه سدت عن إطلاق الصواريخ وكبدتهم الخسائر على تخوم قطاع غزة.
But Israeli leaders are quickly understanding the full scale of this threat. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan believes IDF snipers should actually be able to shoot kite flyers on sight. Other government leaders are hoping civilian drone flyers may be a more peaceful way to cut the strings of violence, but speculate that deadly force may indeed be the final line of defense.
We will overcome this problem with, I would say, efforts in the intelligence and the operational and the technological side. It will be over this way or another.
Proponents of medical cannabis have long petitioned that the plant is not only harmless, but holds immense promise as a clinical drug. Well, one Israeli man has now quite literally put his money where his mouth is. During an open Knesset Health Committee hearing to discuss medical cannabis, an Israeli man recited a short blessing, then proceeded to chug a whole bottle of cannabis oil in front of the entire room.
אתם רוצחים אנשים, כל מי שלא תומך בלגליזציה מלאה. עזוב אותי חבר, תביאו צבא. אני פוסט טראומה במשטרה ומשומרים, עזוב אותי. תביאו צבא עוד 10 גרם, חברים. הישיבה נעולה. לא, אמרתי לכם. 20 גרם קנאביס, אבי דקל 30 גרם. עכשיו בוא נראה מה יקרה לי עם הסם המסוכן.
The man, who says he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder from his army service, attended the meeting to petition lawmakers to legalize cannabis. To prove his point, he pulled out a bottle of what seems to be Avidekel cannabis oil, considered to be among the strongest concentrations of medical cannabis around. After a short blessing, he chugged the entire bottle. Security guards then attempted to restrain him, but not before he downed a second bottle of the cannabis oil concentrate. He then leaped over the table, temporarily escaping capture. You can even hear scattered applause for the man's demonstration in the background of video footage taken at the meeting. Now, while this demonstration may be unorthodox, support for the legalization of cannabis has been surging in Israel. The country is a world leader in pioneering incredible medical breakthroughs from cannabis and has developed treatments for an array of diseases including cancer, Alzheimer's, MS, Parkinson's, and Crohn's disease. This is largely thanks to the government's lifting and decriminalizing of cannabis some years ago, giving medical experts the green light to explore the plant's medicinal benefits. Plans to legalize the export of medical cannabis abroad would explode this knowledge into a massive new industry for Israel. But the first major wave of exports to the United States were recently frozen by Prime Minister Netanyahu at the apparent request of United States President Trump, whose administration still largely condemns cannabis. Israel holds one of the highest per capita rates of medical cannabis users in the world, and for now it's still unclear if or when a full-scale legalization is still in the cards.
אני עושה ניסיון עכשיו, ניסוי קליני, יש פה 10 כדורים. לא, אדוני, לא, סליחה, זה כדורים, נכון, זה סמים. סליחה, אבל במקרה יש לי שמן, אבידקל 30%, שכתוב עליו, זה סם מסוכן, כתוב עליו, זה לא כתוב עליו. ברוך אתה, אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהכל נהיה בדברו. הופה! גם פג תוקף, חברים. רגע.
This next story is both a bit concerning and, when you think about it, adorably hilarious. A little girl who cared so much for her brother that she replaced his batteries when they ran out, just like her toys. Makes sense, no? ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has the details. Thank you so much for coming in, Emmanuel.
Thank you. First of all, I just have to say, when you were a little kid, what did you do when your toys, ran out of battery?
Oh, you just throw them away.
Okay,
no,
exactly. So I had two different options. One was to hit the toy as hard as possible on something and hopefully it works again. Or two, give it to my mom and ask her to change the battery. So one little girl, very young girl, they didn't specify the age in the report, she decided to replace her brother's batteries and place a button battery in his nostrils because he was taking a nap. She was very concerned that he had ran out of battery and that he was not going to wake up, so she took the liberty of recharging him.
Well, listen, it makes sense. He wasn't moving.
He was taking a nap.
He ran out of batteries and she wanted to fix him.
Exactly. So that's what she, obviously thought she was helping him out. She clearly cares about her brother a lot. The parents obviously ran him straight to the hospital to make sure everything was fine. Thankfully, the doctor said everything was okay. And they were very, very grateful that he didn't, inhale it a little further or swallow it or do something that, could cause it to go into his system, because these types of batteries, specifically button batteries, are super dangerous and they can emit so many different chemicals, even when they're not in circuit or something like that, when they're not really working.
Yeah, they just kind of leach off.
Exactly. They can have a lot of harmful benefits and
effects.
Effects.
Consequences.
A lot of consequences. She thought it would be beneficial for him, to recharge a little bit. That wasn't the case.
Well, I'm sure her parents got, a lot of adrenaline. They got the charge out of this.
I think they really did get the charge, and it was very important for the doctors to mention that, it's summer vacation now. Parents really need to be looking out for what their kids are doing.
They're not in school.
They're not in school. They're bored, you could
them.
Say, and they're playing around with things. So you have to really be careful.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let this be a lesson, I suppose, to all parents and future parents.
Definitely.
Watch your kids and batteries.
And batteries.
All right. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Speaking of startups and services, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm on a site or an app and I can't get clear answers to my questions. You have to contact some customer service reps or send emails, and who knows when or even if you'll get a response. So, my next guests are trying to change all of that, and joining me in the studio now with more is Product Manager Zoal Franco and VP of Sales Eli Reinert from KMS Lighthouse. Thank you both for coming in today.
Thanks for inviting.
So, Eli, I'll start with you. What does the company do exactly?
So, first of all, the name is Lighthouse. We are a knowledge-based system. Basically, that is transforming the way businesses interact with customers. Okay. So, for example, if an end customer wants to send an email, send a chat, communicate over the phone, by the end of the game, businesses want a unified message to go from the business to the end customer, for a service, for sales, basically any type of interaction. So behind the scene, you have a knowledge repository that streamlines consistent and accurate answers to customers. That's it all about.
Okay, so how did you go about developing this?
So basically, we research the market first, understanding what exactly do people need, what do customers need, right? So once we understand what the end user, which is the customer of our customer, needs, once we know that, we can provide a better solution to our customers. So for example, one of the products that we're working currently is basically connecting not only humans to answer the questions they're getting from customers, but also connecting bots, connecting voice assistants. So basically you get a very much unified answer from all platforms, basically a real omni-channel. I would say the key factor for that is research and research.
And how much, because this sounds like you're using artificial intelligence and all sorts of really complex algorithms to make this happen seamlessly.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question, there are a lot of sites similar to that or products similar to that. So what's special about the Lighthouse exactly?
So basically, to be honest, there are not a lot of products out there similar to us.
Oh.
So what we're doing, basically, we're providing our customers to provide their customers their internal Google. So we're not only providing the smart solution of AI, we're also providing a smart search within their organization. So basically, if a user would go to the website of the company and ask a question live, he will get an answer from a live representative that uses our system. If he asks the chatbot on the Facebook channel, for example, he would get the same answer because it uses the same smart search that the human uses in the contact center.
So final question, where and when is this available, or will it be?
Well, it's already available for certain years. Dozens of organizations in Israel, in the world, that using the platform, and we're just expanding in terms of possibilities, in terms of integration, in terms of unified desktop for the representatives and for employees, and the future is ahead of us, for sure.
Well, thank you both very much for coming in and telling us about the Lighthouse. It looks amazing, and I look forward to getting answers faster. So
we will do so. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, now if you're watching this on an empty stomach right now, consider this your final warning before I begin this next story. A Jewish community in Atlanta has just broken a Guinness World Record that I didn't even know existed. They've just made an enormous Israeli flag using roughly 117,000 blue and white cookies, shattering the previous record holder in Pakistan by nearly 32%. It's a lot of dough. The massive display of baked edibles spread across some 3,224 square feet of Congregation Beth Jacob in Atlanta's Heritage Hall. The community tackled this massive confectionery feat to commemorate Israel's 70th birthday. But the effort isn't just a world record-setting affair. It's also a fundraiser for tons of services and projects in Israel. Sponsors pay $10 per cookie, and all the money goes towards Cookies for Israel. Cookies for Israel then distributes the funds to United Hatzalah, an organization which does emergency medical services in Israel, the One Family Fund, which supports victims of terror, and to the Jewish Agency's Partnership Together program. This army of cookies itself is one big charitable effort as well, though. Now that Guinness has officially declared the flag a world record breaker, all the cookies have been donated to charities all over Georgia so that they can finally be eaten. If they're half as tasty as they look, I'd say this is one sweet deal. The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone. Now for our Hebrew word of the day, a Jewish community in Atlanta just broke a Guinness World Record by making an Israeli flag out of over 117,000 delicious cookies. And that's why today's word is dedicated to that all-time favorite dessert, the ugiyah, or in Hebrew, the cookie. In the wise words of Jerry Seinfeld, if people would only look to the ugiyah or the cookie, all our problems would be solved. That was a terrible impression, but okay, maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but I will admit, if there's anything that comes close to pure bliss, it's gotta be a warm, delicious ugiyah fresh out of the oven. And everyone's got their favorite type of ugiyah, of course. There's the classic Oreo ugiyah, or the slightly more decadent macadamia nut ugiyah. As for healthy ugiyot or cookies like the kitsilano, I personally don't care much for them, but hey, it's a free country. Now, if you ask me, nothing beats my grandmother's peanut butter cup ugiyot. Nothing. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear to partly cloudy with a light breeze and a low of 72 or 22 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect clear and sunny skies with a slight rise in temperatures to a high of 87 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.57 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.